And my husband was also up. He said, "What's wrong?" I'm like, if this is real, this changes everything. It changes everything. Because up until that point, it seemed as if Nolan's death could very well have been an accident.
If this is real, this changes everything. That is not a line from a movie script. It is the verbatim reaction of audio engineer Janetta Brantley, spoken under oath of public opinion on this network, regarding the 911 call from the boat where Nolan Wells took his last breath.
If this is real, it changes everything. It's seismic.
Think of a pair of studio headphones still plugged into a digital audio workstation resting on a desk at 5:45 in the morning. Inside those headphones, trapped in a waveform pulled directly from a government server, a truth was sitting in plain sight, not hidden, just inaudible to anyone who didn't bother to isolate the left channel from the right.
So it was already split between the caller, the dispatch, and the callers in the background. And so that's what made it easy for me to isolate it without having to do much to it. So that isolation, when I separated the left channel from the right channel.
The Mississippi Department of Marine Resources released the original dispatch recording. It was public record, a dual mono track where the official narrative existed on one side, and the reality of what happened on the deck existed on the other.
You say?
You know, if that sound is real, there's no getting away from that. And all this business about there's no connection, well, I listened to a good 40 seconds of SETOW, S-E-A, second word T-O-W, on hold, listened to their music.
The state's handling of the case relies on the premise that there was no connection to foul play. That premise dissolves the moment you apply a simple gain boost to the caller's side of the line.
Let me go look. Hey, where is this? Drop it off. Hey, jump in and pull the plug while you're going.
Hold on. Take out of here. Take out of here.
Hello.
Take it out of here.
Okay, what's going on? What's up?
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our Doge pump stopped working.
The state autopsy is now complete, a document that is legally considered a public record in most circumstances, yet it has been locked inside a grand jury room. The official reason is ongoing investigation. The practical reality is a delay tactic that forces a grieving mother to litigate the manner of her son's death before she is even allowed to read the medical conclusions about his body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Being held for the grand jury to look into that. And the fact, as you brought up, Nancy, earlier, that part of his throat was missing, will that be key? There's so many questions around this, but right, it's a public record, but we're not hearing about it.
The paperwork already knew.
When I heard a name that I wasn't familiar with, it stood out to me, and that alone made me want to hear what was immediately said after "Damn it, Bart." And so that's why in that process where "Damn it, Bart" came in loud and clear to me, I decided to go over to the next part to hear what the rest of that statement was, which is where you saw me actually create a loop over that part, split that part, and then add a gain, which the gain is boosting the volume overall. And that's pretty much what you saw me do in that actual video. And so to hear, "Damn it, Bart, Nolan's really dead now," that I couldn't believe it.
This is where the parallel narrative collapses. While the official story suggests an accidental drowning of a lone swimmer, the enhanced audio reveals a panic that has nothing to do with a bilge pump. The engineer isolated a voice distinct from the distress call, a name that had not yet entered the public lexicon: Bart. The utterance was, "Damn it, Bart, Nolan's really dead now." That is not a search and rescue operation. That is an epitaph, caught on a hot mic.
He's already dead. Is he dead? Yeah. Nolan, OMG, wake up. And as Janetta stated, then she hears a completely different name, Bart. Now, we also hear, and I'm very curious, the phrase, no. Teslin Figaro, was that a nickname of Nolan Wells?
I cannot confirm if that's a nickname of his or not. But what I do know is we heard Nolan.
The transcript further degrades the accident theory with the phrase, "check his chest," and the frantic question, "is he dead?" We are left with a structural impossibility, a 911 call reporting a sinking vessel that simultaneously captures the real-time acknowledgement of a fatality. A boat does not sink and kill a man in the past tense simultaneously. The timeline is broken.
Yeah, so whatever has been the causal factors here has got to marry up with what they were seeing at the scene, and perhaps the audio does fall into this, these statements. And I think that probably from a medical legal perspective, that is the coroner and the medical examiner are going to want to be able to fully appreciate what is being said here from a timeline. This is absent the police's investigation. They're going to try to rule in or rule out what they're seeing presenting on Nolan's remains when they finally did receive them at the state.
For the medical examiner, the evidence is now a race against decomposition. The independent DC autopsy cited significant degradation and a critical absence. The organs of the neck were missing. With the specter of drowning on the table, the inability to examine intact lungs or throat tissue renders a conclusive finding of accident, scientifically handcuffed. The body was transported, the clock ticked, and the biological truth decayed.
My problem is here, Nancy, how was the body treated before or after the first autopsy and the body is transported up to DC? I have questions about this because they're talking about to the degree with which the body was decomposed. The doctor up in DC is seeing significant decomposition. We don't know what they saw in Mississippi, but I do know that you're only talking about and I'm ballparking.
This raises a question that transforms this case from a local tragedy into a procedural thriller. How long does it take for the truth to decompose? And was that delay a feature of the system or a failure of it?
And they're going to get a grand jury with this. I can tell you that. I'll bet you dollars to donuts if that's the case. We saw it with Idaho 4, right? We didn't have it there. We don't have it with Charlie Kirk. That's an ongoing event. This is being investigated. And, the point of contact here is an interesting situation here because you have the state medical examiner, but you also have a county coroner. The state medical examiner provides a service to the county coroner. The coroner is an elected official. He does not do these autopsies. And so the coroner is going to be the gatekeeper relative to...
The coroner, an elected official, is the gatekeeper of the state autopsy. But the district attorney can order a hold on the release. We are witnessing a jurisdictional standoff where the gate is locked not by statute, but by strategy. The state has the report, the family has a grave.
Look how tightly everyone is packed in. There were hundreds of people out on Horn Island on July the 4th. What, nobody saw what happened to Nolan Wells? They all just left with him standing there stranded, waving his arms like Gilligan? That did not...
Visualize Horn Island on the 4th of July. The footage we obtained shows hundreds of people packed tightly on the sand and in the shallows. Yet the official account asks us to accept that a young man could die violently or fall fatally ill on a vessel surrounded by a flotilla of witnesses, and not a single person captured the commotion.
So let's say what people are claiming, that it was an accidental drowning. No one saw. Look here at the crowd. Nobody saw what happened. And all of us have our phones on us all the time. No one recorded this. I think the answers are in the timeline and also the autopsy, when we will hear answers there.
You're seeing video from the Officer Tatum show, and I don't know what they were trying to show with it, but...
In an era where every sunset is recorded in 4K, the absence of video is as damning as a smoking gun.
Until proven guilty. And regardless of how you or I or anybody else feels, that includes the young men on the boat with Nolan Wells. We have a lot of questions that have to be answered. Is this sound real? Has it been enhanced? Who enhanced it?
Everyone on that boat is presumed innocent. That is the right we protect. But the questions are now mandatory, not optional. The Mississippi Department of Marine Resources released a recording of a distress call. That recording contains a secondary audio track of a death notification. These are not the same event. They are two events occupying the same federal file.
Here, another version.
You can see that I have the CTO channel completely muted, so we're only listening to the callers. Then I go through and simply raise the volume of all of the chatter we hear at the beginning of the call.
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can you all please come? We have a membership.
Listen to the STO channel muted. We are isolating the boat. The voices are not calling for a tow, they are processing a loss. The phrase, "shut the up," is directed at the controlled chaos behind the speaker, a frantic attempt to manage optics while the pump is failing. The crisis is mechanical, the panic is criminal.
But who? Joining me now, Teslin Figaro, social justice, political commentator, host of the Teslin Figaro podcast. Ms. Figaro, thank you for being with us. I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, well, that's what the family is saying. They don't believe he died by accident. That's the point. That's the reason why Nolan Wells' mom is saying, I don't believe this. I don't believe he died by accident before we had the audio. The audio simply confirms that there are additional questions that needs to be asked.
The family's theory has not wavered. They do not believe the drowning narrative. Before the audio was enhanced, the mother stated her son was an athlete, a strong swimmer who did not simply vanish into the shallows.
Before we even had the tapes, her theory is, I told my son, I've raised my son just like I've raised my 19-year-old the same way, Nancy, like I'm sure you raise your children. Come back with the people you went with. Her theory has always been that he is a fantastic swimmer, that he is an athlete. Her theory has always been that he did not drown. Her theory has always been that there's something wrong with this picture. Her theory has always been that the fact that, you know, he left his phone and left his keys. Her theory has also always been that he did not just go off with some random stranger and say, guys, don't worry about it, just leave me on an island.
The audio didn't create her suspicion, it externalized it. It gave a frequency to her grief.
Have you noticed that people are making a lot of the fact that Nolan was, quote, drunk? A, how do they know that? And B, does it make a difference?
Yeah, well, I've absolutely noticed it, that he was allegedly, they're saying he was drunk, and it doesn't make a difference. And let me ask you this, Nancy. If he was drunk with other teenage kids, he certainly wasn't drunk by himself. So if he was drunk, why was he the only drunk one that ended up dead? Secondly, if this was an accident, let's say he just got so drunk and just passed out, why didn't anybody report it? So even if it was an accident, even if he got drunk, which I don't believe, by the way, even if all those things happened, why did his so-called friends not report it? That's the part that we're missing.
Consider the deflection of toxicology. If the blood panel shows alcohol, the narrative will pivot to accidental intoxication. But a high blood alcohol content is a double-edged piece of evidence. It impairs judgment, and it also eliminates the ability to defend against an attack.
Scott?
Well, listen, Nancy, I know you're a teetotaler, but let me tell you something. The drunker you get, the more alcohol you take on board, it lessens your ability to defend yourself. It lessens your ability to make good decisions. And so we see this played out all the time in the medical legal world. And that's going to be the measure here, I think, relative to tox. Everybody wants.
The question is not whether he was drinking, the question is why the system is asking that question before determining the cause of the marks on the back of his head. We are diagnosing the victim's bloodstream while ignoring the victim's wounds.
That we're missing. So where's the answers to that, Nancy? He just went and just said, I'm just going to be drunk and just go in the middle of the ocean and just die with hundreds and hundreds of people who are around, who are watching. Nobody saw anything happen. His friends didn't see anything happen. And again, I go back to this tape. I will not sit up here and pretend that I did not hear what was on that tape. And I ask again, even the operator said, who is breathing on the boat? Don't you think that's strange, Nancy? Who's breathing?
The paperwork already knew.
They pan out. If it brings down the courthouse walls, so be it. We want the truth about Nolan Wells.
We have obtained the federal court filings regarding the threats surrounding this case. Records from the Southern District of Mississippi detailing interstate transmission of threatening communications. The public has a right to see the state autopsy, a document that belongs to the people of Mississippi. Go find the docket, read the charging documents, and then ask yourself the only question that matters if the public record audio is this damning: what is inside the secret medical report that the state is afraid to release?